Now the problem with the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is that it was released earlier in the year that people forget about it. Well, I'm revisiting this after 6 months to find out if this phone got better with age, or did 6 months just expose everything Xiaomi hoped you wouldn't notice. Well, watch first and buy smart. Now when it comes to the design and build quality, I actually have been using this caseless the whole time because I just love how it feels in the hand, and this starlight green also really looks premium too, something that I appreciated the more I used it. However, as much as I'm very used to the huge camera modules like this, as it is very similar to the Ultra smartphones from Vivo and Oppo, my biggest anxiety is that how these big camera modules on the Ultra phones can get scratched up pretty easily because of how it's always face down on the table. But Xiaomi did put Corning's Gorilla Glass 7i specifically on this camera bump, compared to Vivo just putting what they call the armor glass, or Oppo with their nano crystal shield. Now, I do not know about you, but I trust Corning more when it comes to the glass protection compared to the proprietary options, because 6 months later, not a single visible scratch. Now speaking of this camera bump, once again, I honestly like the fact that it is quite huge because I can actually rest my index finger when I'm using the phone one-handed. Now the back itself is an aerospace grade fiberglass, not actual glass, which sounds like a cost-cutting decision from Xiaomi, but I feel that that is actually a smart decision because it keeps this phone so much lighter than the Vivo X300 Ultra or the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, where you'll surely feel the weight difference. But my ongoing gripe is these rounded buttons, because it does get some getting used to, especially if you have thicker fingers. Grabbing a quick screenshot can actually be a struggle at first. So I will give this design and build quality rating a rating out of 4 out of 5 stars. Next, the screen. Now the longer you live with this display, the more you appreciate what Xiaomi has done over here. Because this 6.9-inch AMOLED screen has a proper 12-bit color, not 8-bit pretending to be 12-bit. If you know, you know. Now on top of that, it also has 3500 nits of peak brightness and also Dolby Vision certified. All of which means that you'll feel like you're watching on an OLED TV when you use this phone every single day, especially when it comes to watching content. But one thing I'll say is that the fact that the pre-installed screen protector is totally bad, so it's either that you get a proper one to replace it, or you can just take it off and rely on Xiaomi's Shield Glass 3.0. Well, you can make that call. Then the fingerprint unlock is still one of the fastest enrollments I've ever used on a phone. The specific press and rotate entry is still very satisfying and quite quick. It's a small thing, but after unlocking this phone probably about 30 times a day, it is these small things that start to matter. And since this is an LTPO panel, the refresh rate goes all the way down to 1 Hz when you're not using the phone specifically, which does save the battery, which I'll go into soon later on in this video. So for this display, I would give this a rating of 4.5 out of 5. Now obviously the cameras are the headlining reasons to get the Ultra, because many people forget about how good the cameras are, and after 6 months that hasn't changed. Now the 1-inch main sensor paired with Leica's low light mode is still the particular standout over here compared to the latest Ultra phones like the Vivo and Oppo, which does not have a 1-inch sensor. Now revisiting this phone after 6 months was truly refreshing. Firstly, if you missed my video of taking low light and nighttime photos on this particular phone when I was in Chongqing, China, you know, that cyberpunk city in China, well, do check out that video if you guys haven't done so, because yes, even now the phone takes the best shots not only during the day but at night too, as seen in these sample photos. Now I purposely even took some photos towards the evening back here in Malaysia, something that I do not usually do on any other smartphones, as I was looking towards how the camera handled the combination of highlights and shadows. And yes, it turned out great, as you guys can see, where I even tested the zoom ranges under very low light situation, and it held very well too. Now even the video quality was really great in the evening, where this was taken about 6:30 p.m. and the stabilization was also looking great as well. And the same could be said for the 1x or the main nighttime videos too, with great stabilization as well. And of course there's also the option of log recording if you ever need it. Now on the previous generation Xiaomi Ultra phones, I've always used the Leica Authentic filter, but this time around I went with Leica Vibrant all the way because the image processing was not overly saturated as it was before. However, I would love to mention about the fact that the skin tones do get slightly brighter in portrait mode after taking the shot, even when I switch between the Master Portrait and the Leica Portrait mode on the camera app, and I even turned HDR turn off, so keep that in mind. But among all, the 200 megapixel continuous optical zoom from 75 to 100 millimeters is still one of the most impressive things on any phone out right now. And compared to the current flagships I've used, this has to be one of the most stable zoom, because past 20 times there's a small viewfinder box that turns green the moment it locks focus, so you'll know you get sharp photos even before taking a shot. Now, as mentioned earlier, I actually use this phone caseless, but when I'm out and I know I'm going to be shooting a lot, I use this, the camera grip, because not only it gives you that camera grip form factor, but it also has a built-in 2000 milliamps of battery. So I'm not worried about draining the phone's battery when I'm shooting a lot that particular moment. So 6 months in, nothing about this camera system has aged or gotten buggy, but I still feel that it falls short when it comes to the front video camera, because while the selfie photos look great and really nice during the day and also at night, the daytime skies when it comes to the video recording were a little too overexposed, and the front video camera at night was also not the best. But while that being said, I would rate the phone's camera a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, let's talk software, because after many updates, HyperOS feels a little more complete these days. Now, besides the customizable lock screens and all of the AI related features like AI writing tools, AI interpreter, or even the AI erase for cleaning up photos, Gemini is also baked right in, so things like circle to search works nicely over here. But with the recent software update, you can unlock your Xiaomi phone using the MacBook's fingerprint reader, and you can even do file sharing with Apple devices as well, and it has been working very well. But my honest critique hasn't changed since the phone was launched, where HyperOS still feels very bloated or has lots of bloatware. Because I need to be honest with you, and I need to be honest with Xiaomi too. I don't need apps like Momo, Agoda, LinkedIn, the Xiaomi community app, WPS Office or Netflix, or even that annoying Spotify. If I really want those apps, I can find it myself on the Google Play Store. And it's just not me, because even my guitarist Amil has just recently switched from a Samsung phone to a Xiaomi 17T Pro, and the dude genuinely panicked. He did not know where everything was, almost everything felt foreign to him, and he ended up watching a whole Sam Beckman video just to set up his phone properly using a Nova launcher. So if a grown adult needs a YouTube tutorial on how he can actually set up his phone, that's on the software, not on him, because Xiaomi has nailed the hardware on this. But when it comes to the out-of-the-box software experience, that still needs work for anyone jumping to another ecosystem to this. But that being said, HyperOS does some things really well that does not get enough credit, like moving multiple apps between home screens is stupidly easy, select everything at once with one hand, and deleting a bunch of apps also works the same way too. Then the haptics on this phone are also excellent too, proper tactile, none of those cheap buzzy feedback that you find on mid-range smartphones pretending that it's premium. So with all of this mentioned, I would give the software the lowest out of the rest of 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now, as for the phone's daily performance, I'm going to keep this as snappy as how the chipset is, which is the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chipset, because performance day to day has never felt like it was struggling. Scrolling, multitasking, switching between heavy apps is all instant. Exactly what you expect from a Snapdragon premium chip paired with 16GB of RAM. Now, I'm not going to throw some benchmark tests over here, because it's all about what a 6 months update can do for your phone. And what I can tell you is that nothing has slowed down or aged over here the way some flagships do after half of the updates or throughout 6 months or so. So for this particular performance category, I would rate this the highest of 5 out of 5 star rating. But the battery is where 6 months actually tells you something that a launch review cannot. So my daily pattern has stayed consistent the whole entire time, ending day one around 11:30 p.m. at about 58%. Battery drain overnight was really good, losing about 4% when I was waking up about 7:40 a.m. and if I don't charge it, day 2 takes me all the way around 12 p.m. still roughly about 45%, then finishing off at 9% battery close to 4:30 p.m. So that's roughly close to 6 hours or so of screen on time, and that's the 6000 milliamp silicon carbon cell doing exactly what it is promised. And honestly, that consistency matters more than any single benchmark run. It means that I'm not thinking about my charger during the day. For someone who's constantly filming and shooting content with that kind of battery life, that's not a small thing. So I would give a 4 out of 5 star when it comes to the battery performance. Now, if you want a written version of this video, we do have one at our website at www.adamlobo.tv. Links to the website will be down below, where we also have some daily tech news news over there too. So 6 months later, where does all of this leave the Xiaomi 17 Ultra? Now in Malaysia, as of the recording of this video, this phone starts at 5,499 ringgit for the 16GB of RAM with 512GB of storage, which is about 1,350 USD. And honestly, that price value over here hasn't moved, because you're still going to get some excellent camera system backed with real Leica character, build quality that has held up better than expected, a display that keeps impressing the longer you use it, and battery life that holds up under real daily pressure, not just a review of 1 week of a test. Now the bloatware and the front video camera is still one of my biggest gripes, but none of them is close to being a deal breaker. And if you want to see my in-depth camera review of this phone, do check out that video over here.